First, as you know, President Trump has so far spent his lame duck period doing three things: tweeting, golfing, and firing people. The most high-profile firings have been at the Pentagon, where the president has installed loyalists in several top jobs in the days since he lost the election. But last week we noted on this show that the president appeared to have started cleaning out the government's top cybersecurity officials as well. The Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA, certainly not a household name, but throughout 2020, it was at the center of preventing foreign interference in the election, both by preventing cyber attacks, but also by pushing back on deliberate internet disinformation about the election. Last week, Reuters reported that the assistant director for cybersecurity at CISA was forced to resign, and the widely respected head of the agency, Chris Krebs, was telling associates that he also expected to be fired. Why? Well, because Mr. Krebs, quote, drew the ire of the Trump White House over a website run by CISA dubbed Rumor Control, which debunks misinformation about the election. White House officials have asked for content to be edited or removed, which pushed back against numerous false claims about the election, including that Democrats are behind a mass election fraud scheme. In fact, that very day, the day Krebs started telling people that his days were likely numbered, he and CISA had joined several other government agencies in a celebratory statement announcing that, quote, the November 3rd election was the most secure in American history. There is no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. Now, it turns out Chris Krebs was entirely correct. That statement, a statement you would think any American president would be thrilled to see, proud to see, has led to Chris Krebs losing his job tonight. Donald Trump fired Chris Krebs this evening by tweet. How else? And Trump was very clear about the reason. Quote, the recent statement by Chris Krebs on the security of the 2020 election was highly inaccurate in that there were massive improprieties and fraud, including dead people voting, poll watchers not allowed into polling locations, glitches in the voting machines, which changed votes from Trump to Biden, late voting, and many more. Therefore, effective immediately, Chris Krebs has been terminated as director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Now, a source with knowledge of the firing tells NBC News tonight that Chris Krebs learned of his firing from those tweets. And just to take a moment to wrap your head around the ludicrous position that Chris Krebs found himself in. His entire job was to make sure the 2020 election was secure and free of interference. By all accounts, he did his job remarkably well. But then, because his boss didn't like how the election turned out, Chris Krebs was expected, I guess, to do an immediate 180 and say, actually, I did my job terribly. The election was riddled with problems, and that's why it looks like my boss lost. To his credit, Chris Krebs did not do that. He got fired instead. Washington Post columnist David Ignatius writes tonight, quote, when the history books are written, a hero of this election will be Christopher Krebs, the head of CISA. He posted regular rumor control warnings about malicious election claims and retweeted a caution against wild and baseless claims about voting machines, even if they are made by the president. Krebs may have infuriated the White House, but he spoke for a task force that included representatives of secretaries of state and state election directors in all 50 states, the people who administered the election. It's difficult to sabotage an election result in the United States, as President Trump and his supporters are discovering. End quote.